The swearing in of the 6 judges was welcomed by the judiciary, and there's also some money that the judiciary was promised. I can say that is some of the things that are already done and dusted. A lot still to be done?
A lot still has to be done, but to be very honest, I think this administration has shown goodwill for the judiciary, and which is very important. I think there was a lot of acrimonious relationship between the previous administration, the executive and the judiciary, I think starting with Maraga. But this administration already has shown the goodwill. The issue of appointment of the 6 judges, I think that was very important. If you look at the backlog at the Court of Appeal was just insane. And I mean, there are cases that have been there. Already, even with the appointment of those 6 judges, that court is still understaffed. And so you can imagine the backlog that was there. And you know, these are people who have to deliver justice to people. They are only human beings. They have to work within 24 hours. They also have to rest and things like that. So I think that was a very big win. At the issue of the actualization of the judiciary fund, I think this should not be credited to this administration. I think that is something that happened with the outgoing administration. But already this administration, during the campaign, had already promised that it was going to actualize it. This is something that was long overdue, because the Constitution already provided for the judiciary fund, which for some reason had not been actualized. And so this is important. You can see that right now, for instance, the High Court alone, it has a backlog, not the live cases, backlog of 88,000 cases.
88,000?
Yes. Because I had the Chief Justice giving that report just recently. And if you're following the interviews that are ongoing, you'll see what is happening. So this was important. However, there is still a lot to be done. This administration is still new. There's still a lot to be seen. Whether the administration is going to be consistent with the supporting of the judiciary or not, I think that is something that we are going to tell over time. We can't tell right now. It's only 30 days. On the other issues, I think generally this administration has really much tried. In 30 days, to me, from where I sit, I think it has accomplished more than any other regime in 30 days in my lifetime. Because I think some other people say that Dr. Ruto is actually overworking, and which is a good thing. I think we have been used perhaps to mediocre. You know, if you're used to mediocre, you think that is the normal. And so when something new comes in, you think that is too much. And so when, for instance, the president says that, so it's like what happened today, saying that it appears that you've been castigating some public official, that you have to return public funds that you've been earning in salary. It means that you have to work. As an engineer has said, there must be value for money. If we are paying you, you have to give a service. I think his agenda that he gave during the campaigns, he's already handling it. If you heard what he has said today during the revamped NSC, he's talking about even the mama mbogas and the boda boda and the ordinary mwananchi being part of the investment, because you can't really grow unless you save. So being part of the saving at the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which is pretty important, which means he's actually thinking long-term about the ordinary people, the people he said he was going to champion their agenda. And so to me, if I was to give him a scorecard of 1 to 10, I think I'll give him a 7. For the 30 days he has, 28 days, he has now been, his administration has been in power.
And Doc, still riding on what Alex is talking about, today he has talked about, of course, increasing the tax bracket. That is something that he said even during campaigning, and he said that we're going to find some solutions, tax solutions for companies, but we're not going to be closing down companies or halting their operations just like we did in the previous regime, just to underscore some of the things that he wants to do to ensure that the economy remains aligned. And he has also talked about the wage bill. Time and again, he has talked about the wage bill is really choking us, and it's true, it's really choking us, and the borrowing. But he talked about going easy on that. Would like to pick your scorecard in terms of what he has been able to accomplish in the less than almost 1 month that he has been in office.
Well, I think it's important to appreciate the fact that the government is funded by the taxpayers, and so the issue of expanding the tax base and also coming up with mechanism of ensuring that maybe even those who have defaulted taxes are able to pay those taxes in a manner that is more dignified, in a manner that does not appear more punitive like it has been before, is something that is very good, and those are rationales that will be very significant in trying to make the government more sustaining, and as part of helping it not to depend on external funding. And that adds up onto the whole idea of reducing even issues to do with the borrowing, which has become a huge thing. A lot of the revenue that we are generating now is going on to external borrowing, which is not something very good. And if he's now thinking of local borrowing, which was the key driver of the Kibaki regime, then it's something that is very good. The only thing that now will need to be looked at are issues to do with the interest rate, because you see, one of the reasons why governments go for external borrowing is because of the repayment plans and the interests. So those are the things that maybe they might need to have discussions with the places where they're going to do local borrowing in, so that it becomes something that is also easy for government. But those are mechanisms that really help government to become self-sustaining. And even on the whole question of recurrent expenditures, the wage bill and things like that. These are things that are even affecting even the county governments even much more, because every county government that is coming, every government that is coming in every election cycle wants to have their people of their persons within their inner cycle employed within their government. So you end up realizing there is a lot of redundancy, there is a lot of people in the government who are not really doing any work. So that increases the wage bill of even the counties themselves.
Engineer, still on how we are trying to breathe life into the economy, he has talked about borrowing, because we are even borrowing from current expenditure, which is quite a dire situation. Counties are there waiting for the national government to send in money. Some counties don't even generate enough revenue to do anything in their own counties. Then there's a lot of wastages, just like Doc has pointed out. And in his speech today, he has mentioned one or two things that even counties who should have kept a keen eye to listen to in terms of how we need to turn around the economy.
Well, when William Ruto took over the administration of this country, he was very clear that he's taking a country that is debt-ridden, that in the areas of financial management, we are doing badly because we have so many cases of corruption. And number three, he had a huge list of things that he wanted to deliver in terms of the promises that Kenya Kwanza had made to the people of Kenya during their campaigns. And therefore, faced by these three issues, then how do we go around them and be able to deliver for the country? So one of the areas that he has really come out strongly is that he wants Kenyans to save more. And from those savings, he wants to direct those savings into investing into the country in terms of areas of development. So none of this money that will be borrowed from the private sector or from the banks will go into paying recurrent expenditure. When it comes to recurrent expenditure, he has directed the treasury to cut down on the cost. Unnecessary expenses in the budget going to recurrent expenses must be done away with. Number two, all the money that we borrow should go into development projects. For example, in the Kibaki administration, we had an infrastructure bond of 30 billion Kenya shilling. That is money that was raised internally, locally, and was able to deliver infrastructure projects. So if we are able to do the same, for example, for new upcoming projects that we must do, for example, the expansion of the road from Rironi to Mau Summit, which is about to cost 145 billion. That is money we should not borrow outside there in foreign currency denominated loans. We should borrow it using Kenya money so that we can repay it here. Once we repay it here, it's able to grow the economy here. We are able to get more taxes from it because it is money that is being generated locally and being used locally. As opposed to the kind of money that we have spent with the Nairobi Express Highway, which is around $600 million. We are going to repay it in dollars over 30 years. We cannot control the exchange rate between Kenya shilling and the dollar, and you cannot be able then to guarantee Kenyans that the cost of the express highway will not continue rising as the Kenya shilling gets weak with time. And that's a big issue that we must avoid going forward. Borrowing outside can be very expensive, especially for infrastructure projects. So let us mobilize and use that money locally to be able to do projects. That's why he's very keen on marshalling the pension funds. Through these pension funds, they can be able to come together through the Nairobi Stock Exchange, raise a bond, and be able to do a project of that nature. You realize during the COVID period, when SportPesa had issues of management, and we were able to see the books of that company.
Yes.
They had raised over 200 billion in this market. Okay?
Yes.
So we need to find laws where we can control. Yes, you can mobilize money as a private company, but we also restrict how much money you should remove from this country.
Yes.
Let them mobilize, the betting companies mobilize money, but also let's come up with a law that says that money cannot leave this country over the next 5 years. So that, yes, you have the money, then direct that money into infrastructure projects. We also have the diaspora community. They remit over $4 billion a year to this country, but most of it you don't see where it goes. Then can we have a value chain system that can be able to guarantee that for every dollar that is remitted from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, America, and the UK, can it find its way into the value chain of food security, for healthcare, for affordable housing, for other things that we need, even education, and that way we'll be able to see that the value for money is there. Because once we have value for money, even if you borrow how much, but we can be able to see the value for that money that we have borrowed, our country will be able to be economically stable, economically progressive, and be able to remain as strong as we are during the Kibaki time.
Yeah, and Council, in today's dailies, they have talked about, and the government really want to do a lot of cost cutting in terms of the wages. That is something that could also elicit mixed reactions from government employees, including me, because I wouldn't want my small pay be more or less reduced, or some of the measures that they could use in terms of cutting the wage bill could be even challenged in court. We've seen the NSSF has already been halted by the courts as well.
Yes, as I've said already, I think when the government wants to implement, and the government has what it knows what it wants to do. So long as it does it within the law, it is within the government's power, in fact, to cut the wage bill. And one of those things, from where I sit, in fact, will be basically freezing employment for a while into public sector, because there'll be people leaving and no people coming in, because you're already limiting, because you're looking at your wage bill. But secondly, which is most importantly, it will be very difficult for the government just to wake up in the morning and say, you've been earning 5 shillings and now from tomorrow you'll be earning 3 shillings. It's practically impossible. Remember that different people have different needs, and people earn people take care of their families and other businesses, including even taking up financial obligations based on their earnings. So the government cannot just wake up in the morning, for instance, and say, we are going to reduce the salaries, for instance, of public servants.